Invocation. So apavitra pavitro va, whether one's pure or impure, sarva vastagatopi va, or actually sa, in whatever state one finds oneself in, yah smaret pundarikaksha, if one remembers the Lord with the lotus eyes. Whatever form one's beloved Ishwar takes, they're all beautiful. And how do you represent that beauty? It's not Prakritic beauty. There's nothing in Prakriti you can compare it to, or there's nothing in Prakriti that you can superimpose upon it. But they're forms, pure Satchidananda Vigraha, Murti. The forms made of pure consciousness, condensed consciousness, according to the tradition. They're not material forms, forms of Ishvara. So, if somehow or other, whatever state we're in, if we can remember the form of our beloved Ishvara, sa bhaya bhyantara shuchihi, then that person who can do that, the bhakta, becomes pure inside and out, because simply by manifesting Ishvara in the mind, wherever there's Ishvara, there can be no impurity. Wherever there is the sun, there can be no light. Metaphysically impossible. If there is a sun, there has to be light. It might be covered, but the sun itself, by definition, it's inherently light. So Ishvara is inherently pure. This is bhakti. So whenever we feel fallen, or we feel wretched, or we feel hopeless, or we feel like our yogic goals are so far away, we just remember Ishvara. At least if you're a bhakta. If you're not, then remember the Ātman. Remember the Ātman. The Ātman is also effulgent and is also pure. So onward we go. Onward we go to the. We're not going to spend long, but we're going to be in the Taittiriya. Have you ever heard, by the way, this? Let me just read it, because I did memorize it once. I can't remember it now. But here, have you heard this? Sahana vavatu, sahanao bonaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. You may have heard that. It's kind of an auspicious invocation. I had to recite it once at a marriage. You'll find it it's not a yogic sort of verse, really. It's just kind of a sattva type verse. But here it is in the Taittiriya. Just so happens that it's sitting on top of what we were going to read today, which is the koshas. So I since it's sitting there, may it help. May it help us both together. May it foster us both together. Together, let us both act boldly. May our learning be full of vigor. May we never dislike each other. Om. So it's a shanti it's a kind of a sattvic mantra. It's not a yogic mantra, because for the yogis, Om isn't just something auspicious and, let the world, hold hands and be happy. That's a wonderful thing, but it's a sattvic thing. It's not a yogic thing. The difference between sattvic. Sattva is when there's compassion for all beings and you wish all beings well and all that good stuff. And of course, we need sattva. But yoga, of course, is real yoga and is about the Ātman. And these other things are sort of secondary to that. They're supportive of that, and they make the mind sattvic such that it can be receptive to that. But so this is a kind of auspicious mantra, and I don't know if you've ever heard it, but in case you wonder where it came from, there it is in the Taittiriya. And then we have this passage about, remember, Satyam, Jnanam, and Anantam. We said that we did this last class, and or was it the Koshitaki that has the? Or this Taittiriya? Where is the koshas? I thought I had this ready for you. Give me a second. 3 koshas. Spacing out now. I thought I had it open on the page exactly where we were going to start, but clearly not. Oh yeah, it is. It's right here. Okay, so the koshas, all right? So we're now going to look at the koshas. because you've all heard of them, different ways of thinking about the subtle body or the self, the layerings of the self. Most traditions talk about the three layers, the sthula sharira, the gross body, and then the sukshma sharira, the subtle body, and which you can call a linga sharira, sukshma sharira, antakarana, antaha, the internal karana, the internal instrument, karana, the karanas, or you can call it the linga sharira, that it's the sign of the Ātman, or you can call it the sukshma, the subtle body. But here we have and of course the Ātman. So there's this sort of three, there's the Ātman, then the subtle body and the gross body. But the Taittiriya divides it even further into five, the five koshas, which you probably have heard of. And so let's see how that looks like. So from food, surely they are born, all creatures that live on earth, right? So there's a physical body, born from food, nourishment, mother's milk. On food alone, right, we eat grains, whatever, we eat food, obvious. On food alone, once born, they live, and into food in the end, they pass, right? Bodies rot, they decompose, they become nature, and they, in that sense, they become recycled into food. For food is the foremost of beings, and so it's called all herbs, right? Which would be something like well, I'll look at the Sanskrit later. All the food they'll secure for themselves when they worship Brahman as food. So if you worship Brahman as food, that's one way of thinking of Brahman, that it's Prakriti. Krishna, actually, in the Gita, Krishna says, there's the lower Prakriti and the higher Prakriti. And the higher Prakriti is Ātman. It's curious because he uses the term Prakriti for the Ātman. Here it's the other way around. He's using the term Brahman for food. So you can, because ultimately everything's Brahman in one way or another. And exactly how everything is Brahman is what divides the Vedanta schools. A story for another day. But the point we're interested in now is the koshas. For food is the foremost of beings, so it's called all herbs. From food, beings come into being, right? We're born, we survive. By food, once born, they grow. That's what we eat once we're born. It's eaten and it eats beings, and it eats beings, right? Because we eventually, literally, animals get eaten by animals, or if not that, then the body dies, and then it becomes eaten by worms or vultures, depending where you die, or the fire. It's eaten by the fire. Therefore, it's called food. All right, so that's the Anamaya kosha. Made of, Maya means made of, not Maya as in Maya, which means avidya. Don't get it confused, it's a different word. You've all heard the word Maya, feminine noun, which is a kind of a cosmic avidya. It's interchangeable with avidya. This is Maya, made of, different word, like Anandomaya or Chinmaya. That Maya is not the same as Maya, even though it's got the M and the A and the Y in it. Now, different from and lying within this man, we can say person. Let's make this gender neutral when we can, without violating the Sanskrit. I'm not someone who's going to politically correcticize to make up a word Sanskrit and violate the Sanskrit. But sometimes you can, without in any way changing the Sanskrit, you can substitute person for man, and it will probably be Purusha, not in the deep level Ātman sort of sense, but Purusha can just be a person. So we'll do that when we can, without because once you start violating the Sanskrit, well, then where's it going to stop then? We say, well, let's change this. Well, let's change this. Well, how about we toss out ahimsa? How about we toss out brahmacharya? How about we just toss everything out then and just what? End up just saying om and what? Drinking coffee. So therefore, let's respect the texts. And but if we can substitute a word that's more in tune with our modern day sensitivities without changing the Sanskrit, let us do so. And here we can. Different from and lying within this person, just described, formed from the essence of food, right? Anna means grain, Annamaya. So in other words, this body is flesh and blood. Christian tradition will call it flesh and blood, basically food. Now, different from that is this, these are all Ātmans. Ātman means self. Now, in Vedanta and then in later traditions, then Ātman becomes exclusively used just for the deep level inner Satchidananda, Chitti Shakti Ātman. But in earlier texts, it meant the self. So sometimes it refers to the body. The Gita's uses the Ātman both as mind and as consciousness. It goes backwards and forwards, and it never tells you. Only the context can tell you. So these are the 5 Ātmans. The 5 koshas are also Ātman. You'll see the self. Now there's another self within this physical, fleshy one, food one. It's the prana, consists of prana, which suffuses that man completely, permeates the body, the subtle body, the pranic body. I forget how many nadis there are. I don't know, 10,000, 16,000. That's actually mentioned. That figure actually comes in the Upanishad. There are thousands of nadis, which just like we have veins, which are food veins, the Annamaya kosh veins, which we see, right? And that's what they stick your COVID injection in, or whatever your injections are if you take the injections. That's the sort of the vessels, the Annamaya vessels, but there are Pranamaya vessels, which modern science has not recognized or is not aware of or has yet to recognize, however you want to say that. And that's the life breath of prana, which suffuses. It pervades, but it pervades through channels. It's not like consciousness, which pervades everything. It doesn't need any channels. Consciousness doesn't need any channels to pervade the body, but the prana does. I mean, you've heard of the 5 pranas, of course. And then these are the nadis. The first reference to a nadi is in the Upanishads. Only one reference. It's not a big part of the Upanishads. It becomes huge in Tantra, the Tantra physiology, becomes central. All that Kundalini, chakras. Barely, maybe one reference in the Upanishads. The nadis. There's no Kundalini. No Kundalini in Patanjali, no Kundalini in Vedanta, no Kundalini in any of the 6 schools of philosophy. Kundalini is then central to the Tantra traditions, but they are their own cluster of traditions. Don't think that is Hinduism. Never make that mistake to think something is Hinduism. There's the things that are Hinduism would be just basic things like karma, reincarnation, these kind of generic things, Ātman. But even what is the Ātman? Splinters into different schools. So the things that are universally shared by Buddhism, Jainism, and all the Indian schools, the moksha schools, are quite few. Karma, reincarnation, that something survives death, that would be, a big chunk of it. I mean, we can probably add a few things to that list. And meditative practice is pretty much shared by maybe not Mimamsa, but most of the schools. Some version of Ashtanga, maybe Shatanga, 6 limbs. It may not be exactly what Patanjali is promoting, but some kind of a dhyana, dharana type, with some pranayama and some language about brahmacharya and ahimsa. That pretty much is shared by all the moksha schools. All right, back to this. So the koshas, now the second one, prana. Now here's the appearance of a man. So these forms, these subtle bodies actually take the contours of the body that you're in. So I presumably, and I've never read this, but one has to infer that same subtle body means you and I, if we die and become a dog, which we have been, and there's no reason why we can't become again, or a tree or a bug, then our Ātman, remember the Ātman is always accompanied by its subtle body. Only the gross body is discarded and replaced. The subtle body has been accompanying the same Ātman with the same subtle body since beginningless time. Now, the subtle body consists of samskaras. It's a reservoir. Patanjali calls it karmashaya, a receptor or reservoir of karma, which is samskaras. So different samskaras are activated in different lives. So if the dog samskaras activate, then the subtle body configures into a particular blueprint and then enters into the womb of a dog mother. And the subtle body then arranges it, just pervades it. It's just like air. You can blow an air into like those guys on the beach that sell balloons, and you can make them into, doggy balloons and different kinds of balloons. So the air just pervades the grosser form. So that's the subtle body. So now he's talking about a human. So corresponding to a human-like appearance, the self consisting of the prana self, the second one, assumes a human-like appearance. On this self, the head is simply the out-breath. The right side is the inter-breath. Here are the 5 pranas. Here they are. The left side is the in-breath. The torso is space. Well, maybe there's only 3 of them there. Don't worry too much about that. And the bottom on which it rests is the earth. And then we have this little verse. He's quoting some ancient verse, life breath. Gods breathe along with it, as do men and beasts. He's quoting some ancient verse. For life breath is a life of beings. So it is called all life. A full life they'll surely live when they worship Brahman as life breath. For life breath is the life of all beings. And so it's called all life, right? So we had a little verse in the first kosha, right? What happens when you worship Brahman as food? Then you'll have food. You'll never be hungry, perhaps. And it's called all herbs. And we can look at the Sanskrit. So if you worship the Brahman as food, then you'll have food. Now, second kosha, what does he say? If you worship Brahman as prana, then you'll surely live a full life. Okay? Right. Now, we're going to keep going here. And of course, some traditions say you're just a body, and materialists. Other traditions will say, in human society, in human cultures, and different cultures of the world, and there are traditions that say, even materialism, right, you're the body. Other traditions say, no, you're the life air, and that's it. You're life air. When you die, maybe the life air goes, whatever, but you're life air. So what about the third? Different from, and lying within this self, consisting of breath, one we just discussed, is the Ātman, consisting of mind, which suffuses this other self. So prana suffuses the fleshy self, the annamaya, the flesh made of grains, they say. We can say, earth. Prana suffuses that, pervades it. Mind pervades that, pervades prana, which in turn is pervading the body. Right. Now he is the appearance of a human. So this is just, it repeats exactly the previous 2. Corresponding to his human-like appearance, this self, consisting of mind, assumes a human-like appearance. On this self, and then the same thing. The head is simply the yajur. This is the 4 Vedas. And what does this mean when we don't know? We can only speculate. Here we get into this esoteric, still remember this is ancient Upanishad. It's still embedded in a mainstream culture, which is Vedic ritualism. The Vedic rituals are the mainstream, religiosity that's going on in the towns and cities of ancient India at this time. And so the vocabulary, just like Christian Europe, for example, right? The language, the churches, the priests, And so, even we know that when the first gurus came to the West, they had to use that language to communicate. They had to, use the language of soul and God and so forth. So you get these references to Vedic ritualism and esoteric, but new meaning is assigned to it. So you're keeping language that's familiar to people because you don't want to just traumatically just change everything. People can't just take a massive, great big. Some people can, but for the most part, what you keep the vocab and language they're used to, but then you subtly start to assign new meanings. So people don't feel like that their whole world is being sort of wrenched apart. So on this self, the head is simply the yajur mantras, the right is the rig verses, the left is the samancha. We don't have to worry about that. And then this little verse, before they reach it, words turn back. Words cannot capture Brahman. We can talk about the world, we can talk about physics, we can talk about chemistry, we can talk about psychology, but words turn back together with the mind before they reach Brahman. What does it mean together with the mind? The mind can't conceive of it. It knows there's something, some higher intelligence, some creative, intelligent power behind the universe. That much it can know, but it can know nothing about it. So it turns back, it runs into a stop sign. So isn't that beautiful? Before they reach it, words turn back together with the mind. And then just randomly, this other comment, one who knows the bliss of Brahman is never afraid. Why are you not afraid? Because fear comes from fear that something's going to happen to your body, or something's going to happen to your mind. You're going to be disrespected. You're going to be heartbroken. You're going to be lonely. You're going to be depressed. There's fear. But once you know you're not the body and mind, where's fear? So one who knows, not knows of, but experiences the bliss, the ananda of Brahman, is never afraid. So these two, some for whatever reason, this nice little verse is just sort of juxtaposed in there. Now, keep going through the koshas. Forgive me, I have to keep hydrated. Of that, this here is the Ātman. This belongs to the former, whatever that means. Don't know. Different from and lying within this self consisting of mind, that's Manomaya kosha, is Vijnanamaya kosha. The Ātman consisting of Vijnana, perception, or Vijnana usually translated as wisdom, or kind of, Vijnana, like Viveka, really. So, and this too, and this is all the same refrain, corresponding to a human-like appearance, the self consisting of Vijnana, perception, or I would take Vijnana to mean more, in the Gita it means wisdom, and it's juxtaposed with Jnana. There's Jnana and Vijnana. Jnana is just sort of theoretical knowledge. Vijnana is realized knowledge. But these terms take slightly different nuances in different texts. You can't assign a single meaning. So it assumes this human-like appearance, and then we get the same thing. The head is the faith, the right side is truth, the left side is the real. The torso is the performance, whatever that means. Performance of what? The ritual doesn't say. But what we can do, if you wanted to dig a little bit more deeply into these esoteric verses, is you read the commentator. Now the thing is, the first commentator is 1,000 years, 1,500 years later, 1,200 years later. Shankara. That's a huge gap, my friends. Still, Shankara is still, it's still a lot earlier than us, and the chances are, and he definitely had access to traditions that were being handed down. So we can't go back to the mind of the author here, and the closest we can get to it is 1,200 years later. But nonetheless, even though 1,200 years is an enormous amount of time, don't underestimate the power and the fidelity of Indian traditions. They're handed down quite meticulously. And when the European scholars ran around India, right, they were looking for the origins of the Indo-Europeans, the Aryans, they were called them. Where did everybody come from? The Europeans. The languages are connected. So what was the original people? So they're very interested for racial reasons and political reasons and nationalistic reasons, not for spiritual reasons. But they were interested in the origins of it all. So they understood that Rig Veda is the oldest Indo-European text in existence. There's a few inscriptions in Hittite, but in terms of a text. So this was like the earliest window into the origins of, the human race, but certainly the Indo-European language family. So they went running around and they collected what had been handed down in Kashmir for 4,000 years. And then they had the Bengali recession, I think it was Bengali, and the South Indian one. They had been separated for 4 millennia, my friends, or certainly 2-3 millennia. And they found they were identical. Where else would you, anything like that? If you have an oral tradition, not even written, an oral tradition handed down in the lineages for 4 millennia, and the different lineages, and then at the end of 3 millennia, whatever it is, they're identical. Now, how is that so? Because the meticulous rules of memorization. They devised these rules because the Vedas was considered so sacrosanct that you couldn't change a phoneme. They were eternal Vedas. They were eternal divine revelation. So they devised these mnemonic devices. So you do 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2. So Agne me, Agne me, ni ag, Agne me, and then Agne me he mi na, and you would do all. They had several different devices like that. It was 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, and then there were other ones like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, and basically they devised it in such a way that if one single phoneme dropped out, it would immediately be conspicuous because there would be this hole in the meter. And so with these mnemonic devices, unparalleled or unseen or unheard of anywhere else in the ancient world, they were able to transmit at least the Vedas without losing a single phoneme for 4,000 years. And how do we know that? Because we compare it with other traditions that were separated geographically, and they're identical. Now, Vedanta is not like that. The Upanishads maybe, but still, that type of training lends itself to the preservation of tradition. So I say Shankara is the first commentator, and he's the 8th century, and this is probably written in the 8th century of the Common Era. This may have been written 5th century before the Common Era. So now we're looking at 1300 years. You could say, well, that's a big gap. What makes Shankara an authority? Well, that kind of intellectual memorizing background is what can give us some confidence. Some confidence that these lineages were very strict in how they memorized and transmitted their traditions, number one. And number two, what choice do we have? You find these scholars who think, modern scholars, now, they think, with their philological skills and linguistic skills, they can interpret the text better than Shankara. Well, namaskar to them. I put my money on Shankara. So then if you wanted to know what this means, what does this mean? The torso is the performance, the bottom on which it rests is the celebration. These are sort of references to Vedic ritual, where the slab is the bottom and the churning stick is what you generate the fire. But then you can read Shankara and see what he has to say and how he interprets it. So that would be the method. In traditional study, you run into these esoteric references. What do they mean? Notice the language is still pervaded with Vedic ritual or literalism. Still the mainstream religion. Perception that conducts a sacrifice. Perception that performs the rites. Perception that all the gods venerate. They're taking Vedic language, but they're Brahmanizing it. They're Upanishadic. They're just like the yogis came over and they took Christian language, but they yoga-sized it. They appropriated it to try to present their yogi or Yogananda Paramahamsa. And the first teachers that came over, they had no choice. Well, they're going to start using Sanskrit. Nobody have a clue what they're talking about. Now we're a little bit more educated. We're familiar with terms like koshas and karma and Brahman, but not back then. So you have to use the language people that, the closest sort of thing people to what you're trying to say. So that's what's going on in the Upanishads. They're using this language of sacrifice, rites, the gods, veneration, in order to present their Upanishadic teaching of Ātman. Now, of that, this here is different from, now we get to the 5th kosha, different from and lying within this self, consisting of vijnana, I would call it he calls it perception. I don't know why he calls it perception, but knowledge self, wisdom self, is the self consists of bliss, Anandamaya. You've all heard of Anandamaya. Isn't there Anandamayi? There's a teacher called Anandamayi. That's the Anandamaya, made of bliss. Maya means made of, feminine Mayi. So Maya, right? You've heard of Chinmaya, the disciple of Muktananda. Chinmayi. No, what's her name? Forget. Chinmay something. All right. So this suffuses this other self completely. So each self suffuses each self is subtler than the other ones and pervades the lot. So the body doesn't pervade anything. It's the grossest. Prana pervades the body. Mind pervades the prana and the body. Vijnana pervades those three. And of course, consciousness pervades the lot. Now, there's a difference in Vedanta whether the Anandamaya is the Ātman or yet another kosha. There's a difference between Vedanta traditions. I would take the view with Ramanuja, I think it is, that this is the Ātman itself. Because we know that Ātman is Satchidananda. So this is the Ananda self. All right, so there are your koshas, my friends. So, and you have these lovely verses that you can puzzle over a little bit. If a person thinks Brahman is non-existent, he himself becomes non-existent. If you think, there's no Brahman, there's no Ātman, so what does that mean, you become non-existent? Well, probably means something like you lose your human form, and now you've lost it, and now because you haven't sought the self, and so you then, okay, that's the whole purpose of human life, is to seek the self. You don't use it for that, okay, become an animal then. And the purpose of animals is burn up their karma and the 4 functions of an animal: eat, sleep, mate, and defend. You eat, you sleep, you mate, and you defend. If that's what we use for our human form, of life, then we miss the boat. So then become an animal. Then, if you want to eat, sleep, mate, and defend, the purpose of human life is to seek the existent. Okay, and then you have these nice little questions. Does any man who knows this not attain that world when he dies? If you don't know it, can you attain moksha? And then the question, or does any man who knows this attain that world when he dies? Well, if you know Brahman, will you be liberated? This nice little, they're not dogmatic. There's nice little just little snippets of the Upanishadic way of thinking. By the way, before we move on to the next Upanishad, Ramanuja, the great theistic Vedantin, who believes that Brahman is the supreme Ishvara, eternal Ishvara, the souls are eternally individual. Ramanuja is the Krishnamacharya tradition and the Guruji Iyengar tradition. He likes this verse because this suggests a personal creator being that creates. He had this desire, let me multiply myself, let me produce offering. So he heated himself up. When he had heated it, that's tapas. When he had tapasified himself, he emitted the whole world, everything that is here. After emitting it, he entered that very world. And after entering, he became in turn satyam, satyat, the distinct and indistinct, the resting and the never resting, in other words, Purusha Prakriti, the moving, the non-moving, the perceived and the non-perceived, right? You perceive the world, you don't perceive the Ātman. The resting is the Ātman, is just passive consciousness. Never resting is Prakriti and the gunas, ever moving. The real Satya and the unreal, Anvrita. Why is it unreal? Because it's ever changing. Your body is not real. It's changing every second. You can't grasp it. It's changed by the time you even grasp it. He became the real, everything that is here. That's why people call it all this Sat. It is. It's real. All right. So that's all I wanted to do from the Taittiriya. And now we will move on to our next Upanishad. So, and that is the Kena. It's lovely. It's lovely. I think you'll enjoy it. And it's called Kena, okay? And Kena means by whom. So you see where it says by whom, by whom, by whom? That's Kena, Kena, Kena. Kena in Sanskrit is the third, it's the instrumental case. In Latin, we have 6 cases, right? Nominative, accusative, dative, genitive, ablative, locative. I think Greek has 8, or does it have 7? I think it maybe has 7. But Sanskrit has 8. I'm not sure about Greek, whether it has 7 or 8. That's one of you knows. Maybe someone can go online. Eleonora, how many cases does Greek have? Is it 7 or 8? I think only Sanskrit has kept the old Indo-European instrumental case. And instrumental means by with which you do something. So if I cut my food with a knife, that's the instrument. That with is the instrumental case. What does it say? 5 cases. No. Greek has more than 5. Ancient Greek. Put ancient Greek. Classical Greek. It's either got 7. Latin has 6. Rex, regem, regis, regi, rege, right? Rex, regem, regis, regi, rege. That's 6. But Greek has 2. It's older. It's much closer to Sanskrit. By the way, the closest language to Sanskrit is not Latin. It's Greek. No? All right, doesn't matter. So all of which is to say, by whom, that's the instrumental case. And the word is Kena, and the whole Upanishad becomes called the Kena. Kena impelled. By whom impelled? Kena compelled. Does the mind soar forth? What's impelling and compelling the mind to act? What's behind the chitta vritti? What's animating it? By whom in joy does the breath march on as the first? What is it that's activating the breath and it marches on as the first sign of life, the first amongst whatever, the senses perhaps? By whom is this speech impelled? What is it that activates really speech? With which people speak? And who is the God that joins the sight and hearing? Right? Why is he talking about a God? Because he's using language the Vedic people know, that the gods are the high power. So what's the power that joins the sight and hearing? My friends, this is an ancient argument for the Ātman that is still active in our modern day philosophy of religion for those who are arguing for what in philosophy departments is called substance dualism. We've discussed it before. If you want to argue that consciousness is distinct from the body, it's a different type of thing, it's a different substance, it's a different entity, you can't use the language of soul because that's theological language. What language would you use then? If you want to, be an academic and use the vernacular and the vocabulary of philosophy, you will call it substance dualism. There's two kinds of substances: material substances. That will be your subatomic particles, your forces, all of that. Neurons, of course, are secondary because neurons themselves are combinations of atoms and subatomic particles. So there's those kinds of substances. And of course, there are those that believe consciousness is nothing other than some kind of a neurological formulation. They would be the materialists or the physicalists. But those who say, no, consciousness is a completely different kind of quality. It cannot be tied to any material substance. The material substance have qualities like form, like shape, like density, like texture, all those kinds of qualities. But consciousness is a completely and utterly different type of quality that cannot be tied to any of those material substances. Remember, substance, substar. Something is standing, substar, standing sub, below the quality. Form doesn't just float around. Something has a form. Color doesn't just float around in abstract space. It's located in something, a red car, a red shirt. You don't just have redness floating around in abstract in the universe. So qualities have to be grounded in the substance. This is basic 101, Aristotle goes back to, okay, so now the question is this. Now, if you're going to say that there is no Ātman, and who is it that sees, well, okay, the eye and the material ingredients of the eye creates visual consciousness, and the material ingredients of the ear creates audible or oral consciousness. If you're going to take a materialist position, then the question is, well, how come I can see and hear something at the same time? Who ties them together? If one set of neurons or subatomic particles associated with hearing generates hearing consciousness, as a materialist would say, and a different set of neurons or subatomic particles are associated with consciousness of sight, then they should be two completely different things. They're two completely different sets of material ingredients, subatomic particles. Why is it that I can hear and see something simultaneously? Then there must be something beyond those two sets of material ingredients that can tie them together. Because I can see, hear, touch, taste, smell all at the same time. I can taste something, smell it, see it, hear it, whatever. So therefore, there must be an entity behind the material ingredients that allow sight, and the material ingredients that are responsible for hearing. There must be something that joins it. This ancient argument is still alive and well. Modern philosophy of religion that these people never read the Upanishad, never heard of the Upanishad. It's the same argument that has surfaced in completely different contexts, simply because it's a logical argument. There's no reason why people can't stumble upon the argument independently. Did you get it? What's connecting them? Consciousness pervades the whole body, so consciousness can be conscious of the eyes, of the ear, at the same time. That one consciousness pervading the whole body can be conscious of all the sensory impressions of the body. So it can be tasting something, smelling it, seeing it, all at the same time, because that one consciousness is pervading everything. But if you say there's no one consciousness, there's no soul, there's only separate clusters of whatever you want to say it is, neurons in the brain that are responsible for the five perceptions, well, fine, in that case, they should be independent. When one is firing, the other one wouldn't be firing. You can't be conscious of both. You would be sound conscious 1 minute, and but in a different cluster of samskaras is firing for sight consciousness. How would you be able to do them both at once? They're two completely different clusters of samskaras. The fact that we can combine them both at once means there must be a third entity, a different entity that's combining them, the combiner. That's so this is a logical, a rational argument. Even though the Upanishads are not very philosophical, they don't engage in kind of analytic, inferential thinking. Later schools do, the logicians do, Nyaya. But here we have a kind of a logical argument. And actually, my friend at Rutgers, philosophy of religion, he uses the same argument. I've never told him it's to be found in the Upanishads. I'll have to let him know. I forgot to tell him that. But he actually wrote an article featuring this. I better say, oh, look, sorry to break the news here, but that's been around 2,500 years. That which is the hearing behind hearing. See, there's something that's behind hearing, the thinking behind thinking, the speech behind speech, the sight behind sight, breathing behind breathing. So that thing which is behind them all can combine them. Otherwise, they would just be functioning separately. You'd have to stop hearing before you could think. You'd have to stop thinking before you could talk. You'd have to stop, right? Because you couldn't do both at once, because there's no you, if you're a materialist, that's combining them both. They would just be the hearing you, and that couldn't be combined with the smelling you, because there's two different, what would combine them? They're different sort of clusters of neurons. Is that clear? Do you get it? Get the argument? Yes? Everybody, you get it? Mary's getting ready to have a little snooze there. We'll give it 10 minutes. She'll be snoozing. All right. Okay, well, let's keep going. So freed completely from these external functions, these are sometimes called the gates of the body, because that's how consciousness exits and contacts the world out there. Freed from these, the wise become immortal. That consciousness is no longer trapped in this kind of body made of this body with its instruments, and therefore limited to those instruments. You're only allowed to see as far as your eye allows you to see, hear as far as your ear allows you to receive vibrations. We're trapped by these things. Consciousness is potentially infinite. So freed from these, the wise become immortal when they depart from this world. Then it's only the body that's mortal. If you're freed from the body, then you're not mortal, are you? You're immortal. Sight does not reach there. Neither does, you can't see it, the Ātman. Neither does thinking. Thought can tell you, like this argument we just had. Thought can say there must be a God that joins the sight and hearing. God here meaning an entity. So that's reason. It doesn't tell you very much about that entity. It just tells you there must be an entity. So reason can tell you there must be an Ātman. Reason can tell you there must be an Ishwar. As Ramanuja says at the beginning of Vedanta, reason can tell you there must be an intelligent cause, but tells you nothing about it. What if it's a demon? What if there's two intelligent causes? What if there are a bunch of gods? What if it's an evil scientist? Right? Like some of those sci-fi, So reason cannot tell us. And that's why it says here, neither does thinking. Sight doesn't reach there, neither does thinking. And not our grandest philosophers. Look what Aristotle ended up with. Look at the pickle he ended up with. One of the most brilliant minds in Western tradition. And he was simply relying on reason. What does he end up with? A prime mover that's so unable to change and so internally absorbed, he has no awareness of the world. And he's just like a magnet. The world just revolves because other beings are seeking him, and that power of them seeking him is what generates the energy that revolves the universe. But God himself is absolutely self-contained and oblivious, indifferent, and not just oblivious and indifferent, but completely unaware of the world. And why does he say that? Because if he was aware of the world, then he would be aware of the changes of the world in the world, And if he was aware of the changes in the world, then he would be changing along with it, because his awareness would be changing. And if you want him to be eternal, he can't change. So that's where you end up with, if you just use philosophy, a prime mover that's oblivious and totally and utterly, good luck offering some bhakti to that, an entity like that. Don't be wasting your agarbatti and your ghee wicks. You don't even know you're offering them. Save your money. Go buy a coffee in Starbucks. That's the prime mover. That's where you end up with it if you just use reason. So therefore the Upanishads say thinking doesn't reach there. You're going to end up with, like Aristotle, the ridiculous, completely unattractive type of Ishvara. So thinking doesn't reach there. Sight doesn't, nor thinking, nor speech. We don't know. We can't perceive. How would you point to that? How are you going to point to that? We're going to say, you can say things like, you are that, tattvamasi, aham brahmasmi. You can say, well, I'm Brahman. Well, that's not very helpful, is it? Aham brahmasmi. Well, great. Tattvamasi, you are that too. Okay, that's about it. How are you going to point it out? It's far different from what's known. It's nothing to do with our manifest world. It's further than the unknown. So have we heard from men of old. The Upanishads themselves, despite being so old, they're quoting older texts, my friends, completely lost in the mists of time. So when we say this knowledge is primordial, it's literally primordial. Look, so have we heard. If we go with the scholarly dating, this is 5th century BC. Of course, Hindus would say it's much, but they'd say it's eternal. But within the Upanishads, they talk about men of old. No, nothing. We don't know what's been lost. So have we heard from men of old who have explained it all to us, which one cannot express by speech. You can't say anything other than it is. The Upanishads like to say it is asti. So you can't express it by speech, by which speech itself is expressed. In fact, it's the other way around. It's because of consciousness that we can talk in the first place, that there's consciousness and that can animate the function of speech. So learn, that alone is Brahman, not what they here venerate. Again, a dig at the Vedic ritualists who are venerating the celestial beings, but it could be us. What do we venerate here? Our consumer, our material things. And then, as we know with the Upanishads, then it repeats the same thing, right? Cannot express by speech, one cannot grasp with the mind, but by which they say the mind itself is grasped. But if it wasn't for consciousness, the mind wouldn't work. There would be no thought. Learn, that alone is Brahman, not what they here venerate, and on we go. Which one cannot see with one's sight, by which one sees the sight itself. Because of consciousness that flows through the instruments of the eye, the Gyanendriya, Aksha. Learn that alone, that which animates everything else, not what they here venerate. And the same with hearing, not that which they here venerate. Here we are venerating the things of this world. And it goes on in this repetitive way, which again, we know is because oral tradition, like a downward dog, you do it again and again and again and again until you finally get it. And then you still do it again and again, because you never get it. You just go deeper and deeper and deeper. You don't get it. If you could got your downward dog, why would you have to do it at the beginning of every yoga class? Because you never get it. You just go deeper into it. It's the same with the Upanishads. Never. If someone says to you, oh, I've read the Upanishads, can we do Hatha Yoga Pradipika? That person does not have a Svadhyaya practice, does not understand Svadhyaya. To say something like that, it would be like, I always say this, it would be like someone saying, oh, I don't need to do downward dog, I did it already. I did it last week. If you said that to a yoga teacher, the yoga teacher would know you don't have a practice. You can say something like that, oh, I don't need to do downward dog, I did it last year at a workshop. If I had to say that to a yoga teacher, they would know that this person doesn't have a yoga practice. I mean, not in a rude way, but same with Svadhyaya. Anybody says, oh, I've read the Upanishads. No, you haven't. Because you never read the Upanishads. You just go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. It's not read in the past passive participle sort of way. Svadhyaya is an ongoing practice. Okay, my friends? So there it is. And that was, what was that? That was the Kena, the great Kena Upanishad. And we can do chapter 2. You remember the beginning of the Tao Te Ching? How does it go? The Tao that can be spoken is not the real Tao. Does anyone remember that? It puts me back to my grad school days, 25 years ago. How does the first verse, somebody go into Wiki. The first verse of the Tao Te Ching, the Tao that can be spoken is not the Tao. If you can speak about it, then that's not the real thing. Could someone put that into a Wiki search or into a Google search? First verse of the Tao Te Ching. The Tao that can be spoken is not the Tao. Anybody? Good karma points if you do it.
It's not the real Tao.
Yeah, what is it? The whole thing.
Oh, the Tao can be described as not the real Tao.
That's it. The Tao that can be described as not the real Tao. Compare it to this. If you think, I know it well, perhaps you do know ever so little the visible appearance of Brahman. You know a fraction of it. There is that part of it you know, and there's the part which is among the celestials. And so I think what you must do is reflect on it, on that unknown part of it. That's the Ātman, ultimately. I do not think that I know it well, but I know not that I do not know. I don't know that I don't. We don't even know that we don't know it. Who of us knows that? Who of us knows that? He does not know that. Anyone pontificating about knowing the Ātman doesn't know it. But he knows not that he does not know. It's a bit like that Tao verse. It's envisioned by one who envisions it not. You can't envision it. You can't subject to mental categorization. But it can be experienced. Svarupe Vastanam, Patanjali, in Patanjali's words. Atmane Atmanam Atmana, in the Gita's word. The Ātman can experience the Ātman through the Ātman, in the Ātman. No other way, not through the eye, not through the mind, not through any of the instruments, because our instruments are designed to experience property, my friends. Instruments are made for a thing. Look, this is a microphone. I can't use it for cooking, as a pressure cooker. It's a microphone, it's an instrument. It has a function for a particular purpose. The body and the mind are instruments that are made for a particular type of functioning. And what is that? To experience property. Patanjali says, Bhoga Pavarga. So therefore, they are not designed to be able to grasp the Ātman, to experience the Ātman. The best they can know that there is an Ātman. They can make that sort of inference. There's something. But people say, well, I don't know, but there's something. Well, they're right. There is something. So therefore, how it can be known then? If we can't see it, the ways we normally know things are through the senses. And if we can't see it through the senses like black matter, well, we make an inference. Well, there must be this other 90% of the universe we just call it something, or let's call it black matter. But there's something there, right? So we can use inference. But with the Ātman, how is it to be known then? It can only be known in itself, through itself, by itself. What's the Patanjalian method? Get rid of all instruments. Pratyahara. Fifth limb yoga, toss out the karamindriyas, the gyanindriyas, the knowledge senses and the action senses. That's pratyahara. And then you keep going, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. And what's that? That's getting rid of the internal instruments, the mental instruments, the chitta instrumentation. So what's the grand finale? No more instruments. Then what? Tada, tada. Then drashtu sarupe vastanam. Then the seer can know itself, in itself, by itself. So it is envisioned by one who envisions it not. But one who envisions it knows it not. And those who perceive it not. But it's perceived by those who perceive it not. So in other words, we can't see it by regular eyes, but it can be perceived in its own nature. Just a sort of poetic way of, creating language that forces us to step out of our normal way of thinking and ask ourselves, what's being said here? Why is he saying it? Those who perceive it not? It sounds like oxymoron, but this is kind of a bit like the koans of, Zen Buddhism. When one awakens to know it, one envisions it, for then one engages the immortal state, right? Awaken. That's what the word Buddha means to awaken, Bud, become awakened. Then one can perceive it. But then one gains the immortal state. One gains power by oneself, and by knowledge, the immortal state. All right. If in this world a man comes to know it, to him belongs the real, the Sat. The world is not real. It's real, but it's temporary. So the forms, something is really real. It will always be real. We've discussed this before. It will be real. So it will sat, it continue to be real. Sat means to continue to exist, never changing. So if it's really real, if something was there yesterday but not today, well, how real is that then? It's not real. If it was gone, yesterday it was there, today it isn't, and I say, give it to me, and you say, well, it doesn't exist anymore. It was yesterday. Well, I say, how is that real then? It's not real in a deep level sort of way. So therefore, what is the real? That which never changes. What's the only thing that never changes? Ātman, consciousness. Its objects change, not the Ātman itself. If in this world a man does not know it, great is his destruction. My friends, you lose your human form of life. Blew it. If we don't use our human form of life to seek the Ātman. Maybe we don't make it, but if we don't make it, at least we try, and the next life we carry on. We don't blow it completely. But if we really don't seek it, then we lose the human form of life, most likely, unless you're very pious, because you could be pious and not seek the self. You could be a pious person and not seek the self. Okay, then you come back as a human. But there's a big danger of losing the human form, and then okay, you get it eventually, but who knows when? Who knows when? We don't know what kind of karma we've got stocked up and stored up, my friends. Who can say that? Who can say? We have no idea what karma we've been accumulating. We've got no idea what karma is sitting in our karma shaya from past lives that is yet to bear its fruit. We have no way of knowing that. There's no way of knowing that, period. So great is his destruction if we don't know it. Discerning it among each and every being, right? Because every being has the Ātman. The wise become immortal. Krishna is going to talk a lot about this. The Pandita, Soma Darshana, the sage sees all beings equal. He sees the Ātman. By dint of seeing it in oneself, one sees it in others. So they become immortal when they depart from the world. All right, so that's all I wanted to share with you. Then it gets a bit esoteric. You know, Brahman won the victory for the gods, In other words, he's using this Vedic language to promote Brahman. And since we're not familiar with the Vedic language, it's not going to be very useful for us in our day and age, this language. In Kanda 3, Kanda means that the section. Let's move on now to an Upanishad that's going to be very user-friendly, the Kaṭha. Okay, this is like Bhagavad Gita, right? And here we can pretty much read every single verse. Now we're in later, the Kaṭha is probably, the Gita actually quotes 2 verses from the Kaṭha verbatim. One verbatim, one 90% verbatim in chapter 2. So now we're in a play, and now where the Kaṭha is going to be, and it's a lovely story. I love this Upanishad, my friends. It's Nachiketa's and death. So there's a nice little frame narrative which draws us in, and then bang, we get hit with jnana. Okay, jnana is knowledge of the Ātman. Bhakti is knowledge of Bhagavan. We haven't found much bhakti yet. We will when we get to the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Right now, jnana. Jnana means discourse about the Ātman. Yeah, discourse on the self and Brahman. Haha. I didn't realize that was there, but that's jnana. Any kind of, if someone says to you, ask you, what is jnana yoga? You just say, that body of knowledge which focuses or revolves around 2 things. 1, what we are, and 2, what we're not. That we are the Ātman, and we're not the body, mind, and we're not anything else. So it comes in the shape of Sankhya Yoga, it comes in the shape of Advaita Vedanta, it comes in the various forms. It's not just like one Jnana Yoga tradition. There are differences, and they have some differences between them. But if the goal of a tradition is to take you to a place of Ātman and encourage you to seek that Ātman, then it's a Jnana Yoga tradition. A Bhakti Yoga tradition picks up on that. It's not that it's either or. Bhakti requires jnana. Don't think these are options. I don't know where this idea comes from that there are options. They're not options. Bhakti requires jnana. Can't do bhakti without jnana. That's why the Gita is a bhakti text, but the second chapter, the first chapter is all jnana. But bhakti then says, okay, all that jnana stuff is good, takes you to your Ātman now. Now you've got there to the Ātman, well done. Did some good jnana work there. Got that infrastructure in place. Now, what's the relationship between Ātman and Brahman and Ishvara? Then we enter the realm of bhakti. We're not ready for that yet. It's still doing our jnana work here with the beautiful Kaṭha Upanishad. Okay, you're going to enjoy it. And we have this lovely little story. Let's just go along. Ushan, the son of Vajashravas, he once gave away all his possessions. Maybe he's taking sannyas. Now he had a son named Nachiketas. Young as he was, little Nachiketas, faith took hold of him. Right? And we would say that if faith takes hold of you and just emerges in the mind and you have this intense attraction to yoga, it's not magic. Nothing arises in the mind magically. Those kinds of thoughts have been put there in a past life. You've done work in a past life and maybe it doesn't activate right away, but at a certain point in this life, all of a sudden there's a surge in the mind of interest in spirituality, or maybe you you pick up a book and bang, it instantly connects. Whatever it might be, that's sort of, and it happened to me, intense spiritual impulse that made me hitchhike to India when I was, whatever I was, 19. That kind of intensity, yoga psychology would say is past life. It doesn't necessarily manifest right away. Certainly didn't with me. All right, so Ushan, the son of Vajashravas, gave away his possessions, right? Probably when you do that, you're about to take sannyas, which is the fourth order of life. When you renounce the world, you give everything away. And you get ready for renunciation. Why do you want to renounce? Because you want no more distractions. Why do you want no more distractions? Because you want to focus on the Ātman. So you want to be as minimalistic as you possibly can, so that nothing distracts and if you can't do it when you're young, there are those who do it when they're young. And again, if that's the case, then they've done the work in a past life. But the sort of, the conventional way in the sort of ideal Indian culture is that you do it at least when you're 75, you do it. Don't die like a wretch at home, clinging to your attachments. That's not going to help you at the moment of death. So he's giving away his possessions. He had a son named Nachiketas. Young as he was, faith took hold of him, while the cows presented as sacrificial gifts were being led away. So clearly his father is a Brahmin. He's giving away these possessions of the cows as sacrificial gifts. So the son said, the son is a bit not impressed with these cows. He says, God, they're a bit scrawny, these cows. That's what he's going to say. Look, they've drunk all their water. They've eaten all their fodder. They've been milked dry. They're totally barren. Joyless are those worlds called to which a man goes who gives them as gifts. In other words, he's saying, if you give good cows and that they have calves and they're milking, then the recipient will be very happy, and you'll go to the celestial realm in the next life because you gave, but these scrawny cows my dad's giving away, they've been milked dry. They're useless. So what kind of a world is he going to go to? Joyless. He's not going to go to a good celestial realm if he's giving these scraggly cows away. So joyless are those worlds called to which a man goes who gives them as gifts, right? These barren cows. This is just a frame narrative. Don't look for any special meaning here. It's just setting the stage for the Jnana teachings which are to come, right? But let's enjoy this frame story. So he asked his father, Father, to whom will you give me? His father's giving everything away. Father ignores him. So he repeats it a second time. Father, to whom will you give me? And again a third time. And his father messes up, like kids are. When are we going to get there? When are we going to get there? When are we going to get there? So he asks it a third time and his father explodes. I'll give you to death. Not good. Because especially if you're a Brahmin and you say something, you can't take it back. And it comes to be. This is the power of the Brahmin in the Upanishadic imagination. I'll give you to death. So now he's got to go to death. The Brahman, a Brahmana, a real Brahmana, the power of the word, it comes to be. So Nachiketas reflects, he goes, oh my, he doesn't seem very bothered by this. I go to death, right? As the first of many, so many have gone to death, everyone's gone to death. I go as the middlemost of many. What is it that Yama, the Lord of Death, must do? That he will do with me today? Okay. I'm not, the only one who's died, everyone's died. And Yama is Pluto, the Lord of Death. So a voice says, we don't know who the voice is. Look ahead, see how they have gone, those who have gone before us. Look at all the living entities that have died, all past generations, all creatures ever, since the Big Bang, whatever, since life. They've all gone to death. Look ahead, see how they have gone, those who have gone before us. Look back, so they will go. All those who are living, they're all going to die too. Look back, so they will go. Those will come after us. The ones that are just born, the ones that have yet to be born, they're all going to go to death. A mortal man ripens like grain, and like grain he's born again. Grain ripens, falls to the ground, goes into the ground, and becomes the next season's wheat. So a mortal man ripens like grain, and like grain is born again. My friends, we've got to talk about death. You live in an avidya society. Nobody wants to talk about death. That's avidya society. You go to a dinner party, so you sit next to someone and start talking about, oh, I'm going to die. Oh, look, death. Yeah. But what's that? The hostess is going to say, he's going to go, the person's going to say to the hostess, do you think I could sit somewhere else? I'm sitting next to this guy is depressed or something. But that's an avidya society. Avidya society, talk about this. This is wisdom. This is reality. This is truth. So a mortal man ripens like grain, and like grain is born again. We've got to talk about death, my friends, because we're getting older, some of us. What are we going to do? All right, so we had our prime. We were teenagers. We ran around. All right, we did a family life. Thought we'd be happy, and it didn't happen. And then, and kids grew up and left us. So all of these illusions, right? Okay, fine, we did all that. Right, now what? Now we're 60, 50, 70. Are we still going to chase some other nonsense? Come on. Time to renounce, time to get serious. This is what the Upanishads are urging us to do. So now, he's a Brahmin boy. So he goes to the house of death. Now, a Brahmin, this is Vedic culture. This is now a reference to the sort of normal Vedic culture. If a Brahmin comes to your house, you've got to grant him, you've got to, offer him some water, offer him some food. That's just protocol, right? Just same as, even in our society, right? Someone comes to your house, you offer him something, a refreshment, something, unless you're not very cultured. So certainly a Brahmin in ancient India comes to your house, got to offer sweet words, somewhere to sit, and some refreshment. So a Brahmin guest enters the house as the fire in all men. He can burn your house down if he's this is the sort of the idealization of the Brahmin. Don't worry about all that culture stuff. We're going to get to the jnana. This is just a frame story. So Brahmin guest enters the house as the fire in all men. Bring water, O Vashvata. That is how they appease him. You better offer him at least a drink. Otherwise, the fire of the Brahmin's anger can burn your house, can destroy you. You don't want to be cursed by Brahmin, basically. So if you don't, what happens? Hopes and expectations, fellowship, goodwill, children, livestock, rights and gifts. All these a Brahmin wrests, takes away from the foolish man in whose house he resides without any food. Brahmin comes to your house, you don't offer him refreshment, that's bad luck. Let's just put it that way. Inauspicious, you're going to get some bad things happen, right? That's the thinking of the ancient Vedic culture. So death says, 3 nights, O Brahman, you stayed in my house, a guest worthy of homage without any food. Death suddenly realizes, oh my God, Nachiketas has been here 3 days and I didn't offer him anything. Right? This is just a made up story. It's not a literal story. It's a frame narrative. Right? 3 nights, O Brahmin, you stayed in my house. You're a Brahmin, so guest worthy of homage without any food. Now 3 wishes. He wants to, he realized he's made an offense. He didn't offer any food. Says, okay, I'll give you 3 wishes to make up for it. 3 wishes, therefore, deign to make in return. Okay? Don't get impatient, my friends. We're getting to the jnana. Let's just enjoy this beautiful frame story. 3 wishes. I made an offense. Came to my house of death. And 3 days, I didn't know you were there, whatever. I didn't offer you anything. So make up for it, 3 wishes. So homage to you, Brahman. Namaha. May I fare well. Don't curse me. Don't curse me. Please, you're Brahman. 3 wishes. Nachiketas, first wish. That with his temper cooled, his anger subdued, Gautama, O death, be to me well disposed. Now let my dad not be mad at me anymore. Because remember, his dad had a bit of an anger management problem and cursed him to death. Well, what would you do today? You'd call up the child abuse hotline, right? Back in the Vedic child abuse hotline. Excuse me, we got this Brahmin. You just cursed his son to death. He need to find some fun. Okay, so first wish, that with his temper cooled, his anger subdued, Gautama, be to me well disposed. That his dad calm down and not be mad at him anymore. That he greet me with joy. When by you I'm dismissed, when you let me go back to my home, that my dad won't be mad at me. This is the first of my 3 wishes. First wish. Death says, okay, no problem. He'll be affable in the future, just as before. Adal laka aruni, I have dismissed you. Don't worry. When you go back to your dad, he'll be like he was before. He won't be mad. He'll have restful nights. His anger subdued, because his dad is now feeling guilty. Oh my God, I cursed my son to death. Imagine that, right? So he'll have restful nights once you go back. His anger subdued, and he'll, seeing you released from the jaws of death, he'll have restful nights, which implies that he's now not having restful nights because he's realizes what he did. Okay, so first wish granted, no problem. Dad won't be mad. Second wish. Now, this heaven is not the Christian heaven. Remember, it's a celestial realm where you go if you have good karma. Yogis have no interest in it. They don't just want to go to some other realm and then have to come back down again when the karma runs out. That's just silly. Even Patanjali says that the wise is not interested in any jatya yoga. So in this world of the celestial realm, there's no fear. You live so long, you don't have to worry about death. You actually do die, but it's so long lifespan. You don't barely, the celestial they think they're going to live forever, but really they don't. But there's no fear. There's no immediate death. There one has no fear of old age, and they don't get old there, or death, because eventually they do die. Transcending both these, both hunger and thirst, beyond all sorrows, one rejoices in these celestial realms. No one's hungry, no one's thirsty, very good karma, you have special subtle bodies. So great, the best possible, if you have the best possible karma, you might get to go to a celestial realm. Again, yogi's not interested. Why? Because it's still a body, it's still temporary, and you still come back down when your karma runs out. So he wants to know how to get there through a Vedic fire sacrifice. Right? One of the goals of Vedic ritualism was the good things in this life and to make it to a celestial realm in the next life through a fire, specific kinds of fire rituals. Okay, so then he talks about it. Tim, don't forget, you got first question today. Yeah, right? You, O death, are studying the fire altar, the Vedic ritual that leads to this celestial realm. Explain it to me. Explain me that ritual. What fire rite can I do? What mantras do I chant? What is the procedure in this particular ritual such that when I die, I'll go to not mokṣa, not liberation, but go to a celestial realm. So explain it to me, a man who has faith. People who are in this celestial realm enjoy the immortal states, not actually immortal. Remember that. They call it immortal, figuratively speaking, because the lifespan is so long, it's as if it were immortal, but it isn't. Gita is very clear. Brahma bhuvana loka punaravartino. Where any of the celestial realm, from the highest to the lowest, you have to come back. Punaravartino, back you come again eventually. So that's the second wish. First wish is, let my dad not be mad. Second, teach me this fire sacrifice that will get me to the celestial realm. Not a very yogic wish, but this is just a frame story. Death, no problem at all. I'll take care of that. I shall explain to you, hear this teaching of mine, O Nachiketas, you understand. The fire altar, the particular ritual, there's many, many different kinds of Vedic rituals, and each one designed for a different purpose. You want sons and daughters and offspring, you do a particular kind of ritual. You want something else, victory over enemies, different kind of rituals, and the Vedic ritualism. An enormous array of different ritualistic possibilities, each one corresponding to a specific desire. No problem. I'll teach you the fire altar that leads to the celestial realm, the attainment of an endless world, and its very foundation. Know that it lies hidden in the cave of the heart, which is usually a reference to the Ātman, by the way. So I'm not quite sure what that's doing here. But anyway, I don't want to get caught up till we get to the third wish, because that's where we start the yoga teachings. So Death described to him the fire altar, the beginning of the world, because in Vedic ritualism, the belief was that the world is perpetuated with fire rituals. So what type of bricks do you use in this fire altar? How many? Each altar is different. Each kind of ritual is different. They have 3 layers of bricks, and they're put in different shapes. There's a falcon-shaped ritual. There's the tortoise-shaped ritual. So it's very highly technical, highly specific, and everything has to be done precisely right. There are different mantras chanted for different rituals. Different priests are brought in. Some chant the rig, some chant the sama, some chant the atharva. When does the priest chant one? When does the other priest chant the? This enormous body of technical information revolving around Vedic ritual that eclipses the other ritualistic cultures of the ancient world, like the Greco-Roman one. Eclipses it in technical detail and specificity. Right? What are the Romans doing? Just get a bull, cut it open, pull out the intestines. Oh, look at it. Oh, yeah. What kind of Tabassic ritual is that, right? Get a bull, pull out its guts, and then show it to someone and say, and the guy looks at it and says, oh, you better watch out. You're not going to lose this battle. Not like that. This is on another level altogether, Vedic ritualism. But it's cognate. It's coming from the same ancient culture. Right. He described what type of bricks, how many, how do you lay them out, what shape. He repeated it exactly as described. Nachiketas did. Such a good student. He heard it once, and he's able to repeat it back to the teacher. That's the expectation, by the way. With these ancient teachers, they say it once, you're supposed to know it. When I took initiation from my teacher, I didn't know that. I didn't know that he was just going to say it once. So he gave me these mantras in my ear, the bija mantras of the particular lineage, and there was a series of them. And I thought, he was just giving them to me, and and that I could go and write them down later or ask some. No, I nobody told me. He said it once, and he totally expected me to have memorized it. And I didn't, because I just, I didn't know I had to. And that was it. To this day, I whatever I remember, I remembered. I have no idea if they're right or wrong. But I met a person, a Brahmin in South India, who knew the entire Mahabharata, 100,000 verses. Each verse is 4 lines, so it's 400,000 lines, right? Dharma kshetre, kuru kshetre, sambhaveta, yuyutsavaha, mamikam pandavascheva, Kimmakurvati Sanjaya, that's one verse. He knew the whole 100,000 by heart. And you could try to catch him out. You could give him a third line in the middle of the epic, not the first, the third line, and you would know immediately. You would recite the whole verse. That type of memorization is still probably gone by now, but that was just one generation ago. So that kind of so Nachiketas repeats it all exactly as described. Hears it once, repeats it back to the teacher, and delighted him. The teacher's delighted. This is a real student. He listens. He has good memory, which means your memory is powerful. Which means what? You're brahmachari. You maintain your ojas. Your ojas, which nourishes your body. You don't disperse it in sex and ejaculation. You internalize that ojas, which is very concentrated in the sexual fluids. That's maybe one reason that Ayurveda would say enhances memory, brahmachari, and they give that as a reason, that there's this ojas that is a substance that is found especially concentrated in sexual fluids, and if it's not dispersed in sexual activity, if it's not ejaculated out, but injaculated, if in, then it nourishes the finer tissues and the memory. Now, I don't know what science would say about that, but that's the claim. So Nachiketas has that kind of a memory, and therefore delighted at him. Death said to him, well, please, the large-hearted one. Death said to him, okay, that's 2 wishes, right? Dad will be happy. Now you know this esoteric ritual will get you to the celestial realm. I'll grant you another wish. You give him 3. And then he says, and by the way, this fire altar, this ritual will bear your name. As a matter of fact, there is a Vedic sacrifice called the Nachiketa sacrifice. So this is a story about how that, what is in the old text is called the Nachiketa sacrifice. All of these old sacrifices, all of these stories have background stories as to how they got their names. And that continues even in the Mahabharata. Why is this person called this, right? And then there's a story as to how people get their names. So this fire sacrifice, right? It's a 3 Nachiketa man. And we don't know what this glittering disc of gold is. Nobody knows. Take also this glittering disc of gold. It may have something to do with the ritual. Who knows? So this is all the preamble to where the Katha is going to take us. Uniting with the 3, performing the triple rite. He crosses over birth and death, perceiving the Brahman that is being born. Don't worry about that. Right. So, in other words, when he says he shoves aside the fetters of death, it means it goes to the celestial realm, not liberation. Remember, the celestial realm is often referred to as the immortal realm, but it's not immortal. It's just rhetorically because you live there for so long. So it's rhetorically called the realm of the immortals, but it isn't. So that's the second wish. So this Nachiketa is your fire that leads to the ritual, that leads to the celestial realm, which you chose with your second wish. People will proclaim this, and I'll give you, and I'll name it after you. I'll name it after you. That's the second wish. Now, choose your third wish, O Nachiketas. Okay, now we get to where the Upanishad wants to take us. And here's his question, third wish. There is this doubt about a man who was dead. He exists, say some. Others, he exists not. Right? So there are those throughout human history, in every culture, there are those that say, yes, something survives death, and those that say, nah, now you die and that's it. I'm sure you all know, you all have friends that believe that death, that's it. I'm sure you have friends and also you have friends that believe something survives, right? And if you don't have a Svadhyaya practice, you're going to be vague. Oh, yeah, I don't know what it is. But I believe something, right? And you're going to be vague about it because you're not really interested in doing focusing. There is this doubt. He exists, say some, he exists not. I want to know this. So please teach me. What happens at death? He's asking death. Who can give him a better answer than death himself? I want to know this, so please teach me. This is the third of my 3 wishes. Now, death doesn't like this. He wants to wriggle out of this. So he starts waffling. Oh, as to this, even the gods of old had doubts. It's hard to understand. It's a subtle doctrine. Make Nachiketas another wish. Don't press me. Release me from this. So you can't go back on your word. You've offered 3 wishes. You cannot go back on your word. That's one thing that's a no-no in Vedic culture, whether you're a warrior, a Brahmin, whoever you are. Satyam is not just a yogic thing. The warriors in the Mahabharata, the biggest disgrace is to go back on your word. Why did Draupadi have 5 husbands? You've heard of Draupadi with the 5 husbands, the 5 Pandavas. Well, actually, Arjuna, she was in love with Arjuna, and Arjuna wins her in one of these warrior ceremonies. She wanted him to, so he came and he won her hands. And so Draupadi and Arjuna, it takes to Arjuna back with his 5 brothers, and he goes back to the house where his mother Kunti, and she doesn't see them, she hears them, and they go, Ma, look what we've got, right? And she goes, she's a mom, 5 boys, right? She said, well, whatever it is, share it, without looking. And then she realized it's a bride, but she can't go back on her word. So that's how Draupadi has 5 husbands, even though she's in love with Arjuna. And Kunti gave the word. You can't break a word. You cannot break a word. You can sometimes tinker with it. And the same with a curse. And the Brahmana curses, you can't take it back. But you might be able to somehow tinker with it a little bit, fiddle with it to sort of somehow try to make it more palatable. If you utter a curse and you're upset and you're angry and you cool down, can't take it back, but you might be able to add some secondary element to make it a little bit, more palatable. So he can't take it back. So he says, don't pray. He says, release me from this. he has to be released from it. Nachiketas has to say, okay, I'll do it, but otherwise he can't take back his word. So he's asking, unless the Nachiketas allow him to. If you're allowed to do that, it's different. So release me from this. Nachiketas, he's not going to release him from that at all. As to this, we're told even the gods had doubts, right? Nachiketas says, gives him this waffle. He waffles, gives him this BS answer. Oh, even the gods had doubts. And Nachiketas says, as to this, we're told, meaning you just told me. He's being polite. He doesn't want to just say, you just told me. He says, we're told, just to sort of be a little bit more polite. We're told, even the gods had doubts. And you say, oh, death, it's hard to understand. But you're death. Another like you, I can't find to explain. Who's going to give me an answer other than death himself about what happens after death? Who is more qualified to answer that question? Another like you, I can't find to explain it. I can't find anyone like death to explain what happens after death. So he digs in. There's no other wish that is equal to it. I'm not budging. Death doesn't give up. Look, choose sons and grandsons who live 100 years. Choose livestock and elephants, horses and gold. Right back then, cows, right? Elephants. If you have elephants, it means you're very, very wealthy. You know how much an elephant eats, my friends? It's inconceivable how much an elephant can eat. So you can only maintain it. The only people had elephants in ancient India were the warrior caste. They used them for war, and the temples even today in the big temples in South India, they'll keep elephants in the courtyard because they're auspicious. They use them for ceremonies, and of course they would use them for work, for labor, for pulling, trees and whatnot. So he says, I'll give you livestock, elephants, horses, gold. Choose as your domain a wide expanse of earth. I'll give you a kingdom, and you yourself live as many autumns as you wish. I'll let you live as long as you want. But don't ask me about this. And if you would think this is an equal wish, look, I'm going to trade. I'll trade. Take back that third wish, and I'll give you all of this as a trade. If you would think this is an equal wish, you may choose wealth together with a long life. I'll give you everything. Achieve prominence, Nachiketas, in the wide world. I'll make you enjoy your desires at will. I'll give you everything anyone could possibly hope for, but don't ask. And he goes on and on. Ladies, forgive the next line. You may ask freely for all those desires, hard to obtain in this mortal world. Look at these lovely girls with chariots and lutes. Girls of this sort are unobtainable by men. I'll give you these most beautiful damsels you can possibly conceive of. Okay? All of this. But don't ask me about death. I'll give them to you. You'll have them wait on you. But about death, don't ask me, Nachiketas. All right, now we see what a real sincere seeker Nachiketas is. Okay, he asked for a bit of a trivial second wish, some Vedic fire sacrifice. Okay, fine. But here we see his sort of core, his core, that he's really a jnani, he's really a knowledge seeker. He says, since the passing days of a mortal, O death, sap here the energy of all the senses. Get old, and you can't enjoy anymore. And even a full life is but a trifle. Where did our life go, my friends? Where did it go? There we are with our gray hair. What happened? Even a full life is a trifle. So keep your horses, keep your songs, keep your dancers. Don't want them. With wealth, you cannot make a man content. And anyway, will we get to keep wealth when we've seen you? You give me all this stuff, but I've got to die sooner or later. Then what? Can I take my wealth with you? No. Will we get to keep wealth when we've seen you? And we get to live only as long as you will allow. So this alone is the wish that I'd like to choose. I'm not changing it. I'm not letting you off the hook. I want to know what happens at death. What mortal man with insight, viveka, who has met those that do not die or grow old? Who do not die and grow old? The yogis, those who have realized the Ātman. I mean, their body dies and grow old, but they've attained the immortal. So who with insight who has met those kinds of enlightened beings, and himself growing old in this wretched and lowly place? This is the world. The mokṣa traditions doesn't think highly of the material world. It's full of, everything's temporary, bodies are vulnerable, pleasures are fleeting and unsatisfying, wretched and lowly place. Gita calls it dukhalayam, ashashvatam. This world is dukhalayam, full of suffering, ashashvatam, impermanent, right? Yogis want to seek the bliss, the real, eternal bliss, not some embodied, temporary, stimulation of the senses. So, what mortal man with insight who has met those, the enlightened ones who don't die or grow old in the sense that they've experienced their eternal Ātman, himself growing old in this wretched and lowly place, looking at its beauties, its pleasures and joy, what wise man would delight in a long life? Who wants to live a long life without enlightenment? Struggling to find, getting older and older and struggling to still cram in still cram in some pleasures, right? Getting old and still running around trying to find some pleasure, something. But the body's saying no, and the mind's going yes. There's got to be something out there. What person with insight would delight in a long life? Who wants a long life? The point on which they have great doubts. That's how he started. He started off this third wish. What did he say? Here, there is this doubt about a man who is dead. He exists, say some, others exist not. I want to know this. So teach me this as the third. So now he's referring back to that. That point on which they have great doubts. I love this phrase. I use it all the time. What happens at that great transit? You're transiting, you're leaving the body, going from one place to another. You're going from this world and this body. What happens? Where are you transiting? Where do you go? But of course, that assumes, the way he's framing the question, assumes where transit means the same person is going from one place to another. So implicit in his question is there is an Ātman that's going to transit. So he's already assuming the answer. So at that point in which the people that he referred to, some say it exists, some say that they don't. That point on which they have great doubts, what happens at that great transit? Tell me that, O death. This is my wish, probing the mystery deep. Nachiketa's wishes for nothing other than that. Now we start the Jnana teachings. My friends, it is, oh yes, we did this before, remember? I'm looking at the clock up here, thinking it's 2 hours. But this clock has been on 20 minutes, so we got another 20 minutes. So Death realizes he's got a serious seeker here. He can't be fobbed off with some material boons, and off he goes. And this is going to be very Gita-esque, the rest of the Upanishads, and we'll read the whole thing. And we're probably going to have to add another session or two if we want to do that. If we want to. So I want to read the Mundaka. It's my second favorite. Maybe it's becoming my favorite. This between the Katha and the Mundaka. The Mundaka is pretty cool too. The good is one thing. The gratifying is quite another. The goals are different, but notice both bind a man. If you do good, just good charity and sattvic things, but you don't have knowledge of the Ātman, then you make good karma, so you're bound. Gratifying is rajas, or seeking pleasure. They both bind. But good things await him who picks the good. If you do good, then you get a good birth, good celestial realm. By choosing the gratifying, one misses one goal. Then we completely miss. I always tell my students, if you're not going to seek the Ātman, at least be pious, at least be dharmic, at least do make good karma, so that at least you come back as a human, and at least you don't lose the human form. So it's something like that. Good is one thing, but they both bind, both the good and the gratifying. Both the good and the gratifying present themselves to a man. The wise assess them, note the difference, right? The gratifying doesn't last, it doesn't satisfy, it doesn't fulfill, it's often at the expense of somebody else. You note the difference and choose the good over the gratifying. The Dharma, what's compassionate, what's benevolent, what's beneficial to everybody, but the fool chooses the gratifying rather than what is beneficial, right? Gratifying is instant pleasure, and the fool doesn't think of long-term consequences like karma and so forth. Now, you have looked at and rejected Nachiketas. These things people desire, lovely to look at, right? Elephants, horses, people desire. But back then, you might not desire an elephant in our day and age, but you might desire, I don't know, a fancy car. It's an elephant or horse. So you've looked and rejected the disc of gold, where many a man found us, you've not accepted as a thing of wealth. That's not wealth. It's just property. Gita says, the wise see that a clod and gold is the same. It's just a different combination of the gunas. So you've not accepted it as a thing of real wealth. Far apart and widely different are these two, ignorance and what's known as knowledge. Vidya and avidya, avidya and vidya. I take Nachiketas as one learning for knowledge, vidya. The many desires do not confound you, ragas. How does Patanjali say we remove the kleshas? Viveka kyatir. Wisdom, knowledge. Here. These are the Vedic ritualists. So the Upanishad, this is a strong criticism. The Upanishads they can't reject the Vedas because they have to accept them as divine texts. But they think, okay, they're divine texts, but they're for the ignorant, the materialists. And if you're an ignorant and materialist, okay, at least do some Vedic ritualism. At least that will purify you, because Vedic ritualism is a kind of sadhana. It purifies. And maybe in some future life, you'll become a jnana. You'll become interested in jnana if your mind gets sufficiently purified of your desires, because Vedic ritualism is all about desires. One does a ritual to satisfy a desire. That's what rituals are. Think Greco-Romans, right? You want a desire, you want victory, you want whatever it was, you do it, offer a sacrifice to the gods, which is to satisfy desire. And of course, yoga is trying to be free of all desires. So therefore, wallowing in ignorance, but calling themselves wise, these Vedic ritualists, and Gita has exactly the same language in chapter 2. Wallowing in ignorance, but calling themselves wise, thinking themselves learned, the fools go around, staggering about like a group of blind men led by a man who is blind. Do you want to see how the Gita says that same thing? Chapter 2. Let's see if we can bring it up. Look for Gita. Gita Sargent. There we are. Gita Sargent. Where is it? Chapter 2. There it is. Bring it up. There it is. Can you see it? Right. Where does he say that? Here. Let's go to the Gita. Let's bring this up to 100%. 125. Right. So, Gita says same thing. Round about verse 47. No, further up. 39, okay, right here, coming up. Here, the ignorant ones proclaim the flowery discourse, Arjuna, delighting in the letter of the Veda. These are the Vedic ritualists. The Gita says they're ignorant. They say there's nothing else, right? Nanyat astivadinaha, Vedic ritualists. No, you do your Vedic rites. You go to the celestial realm. There's nothing other than this. See? Full of desires. The rituals are full of fulfilling desires, intent on heaven, not liberation, svarga, the celestial realm. They offer rebirth as the fruit of action. You do your rituals, but you just get reborn once your karma runs out. They're addicted to many rites. What are these Vedic rites? Aimed at the goal of enjoyment and power, bogeshvarya. To those ignorant ones attached to enjoyment and power, whose thought is stolen away by this kind of talk. Do this ritual, you get this. Do that ritual, you get that. Stolen. Resolute insight in meditation is not granted. The mind is hijacked by desires in the form of different kinds of rituals, and the mind gets consumed by that, and now the mind can no longer engage in this resolute insight, which you need for meditation. You need to be determined and resolute to engage in meditation. Look, the Vedas are such that their scope is confined to the three qualities. The old Vedic texts can only give you things of that consisting of the three gunas. They can't take you beyond the gunas. Look, the Vedas are such their scope is confined to the three gunas. Be free from the three gunas. In other words, give up this Vedic ritualism. Okay? All right. So that's exactly what's going on here. Kata. Wallowing in ignorance, but calling themselves wise, thinking themselves learned, the fools. Remember that the Vedic ritualism, I have to repeat this, is the mainstream religion of the time. Yoga's going on and the margins, just as it is in our society. Real yoga, not high street consumer commodified, physical exercise yoga, but real yoga is on the margins. Now we get to the teachings. This transit, what happens at death, lies hidden from a careless fool, who is deluded by the delusion of wealth, thinking this is the world, there's no other. What I care about some other world? I'm here now. Let me enjoy my life. Let me enjoy my body. Don't be talking about don't be talking about some other life. What do I know about another life? Let me live this life. Let me enjoy my senses. Let me pursue wealth. Right? There's a fool, careless fool, says the Upanishad. What's a fool? He thinks, what does a fool think? This is the world. There's no other. And then what happens to such a person? He falls into my power again and again. He dies, reborn, dies, reborn, dies, reborn. That is samsara. This is death speaking. He falls into the power of death again and again. Many do not get to hear of that transit, right? People don't really take it seriously, that there's death. People don't want to talk about it. But isn't it true in our society it's considered uncool to talk about death? Just think that through. What kind of an avidya society creates a ethos that it's uncool to speak about the only thing we know for sure is going to happen? What kind of an insane society creates that kind of a culture from a yogic point of view? So many do not get to hear of that transit. And even when they hear that, many don't comprehend it. They're, okay, yeah, something happens at death. I think something will survive. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm here now. Let me enjoy my senses. Rare is the man who teaches it. Lucky is the man who grasps it. Rare is the man who knows it. Lucky is the man who's taught it. So here we are. We're all lucky, my friends, because we are interested. We're reading the Upanishads. We've taken time on our Friday nights to study together. So we're fortunate. I feel very fortunate that just to whatever failings we may have, the fact that we have this interest, the fact that we're pursuing it, we're blessed. We're on the right path. We stand a very good chance of at least not losing the human form. At least if we're going to come back, it'll be coming, we hope. Why did I just lose my place? I'm not sure what just happened. Yeah. So lucky is the man who's taught it. Though one may think a lot, it's difficult to grasp when it's taught by an inferior man. You can't study this theoretically. It has to be taught by someone who's intensely practicing, it has to be taught by a practitioner, not just someone that just sort of has some knowledge. Yet one cannot gain access to it unless someone teaches it. This knowledge just doesn't magically manifest in the mind. Nothing magically manifests in the mind. If something's in the mind, it gets into the mind. You have a desire for, Ben and Jerry, caramel ice cream. Why? Because it got into your mind. How did it get into the mind? Because you saw an ad, you saw it in the shelf, you add it somewhere. Anything that any imprint that you have in your mind has to come into the mind through the senses. There is no, like physics, things recycle. They don't just magically pop out of nowhere. So we have to, the only way we can get this teaching is if it comes from the outside. And that's why we honor our teachers. That's why we honor the texts. We read the text and the information comes from the text, from the words into our minds and sits in our mind. It becomes part of our mind. When something is in the mind, it's part of it. It's an imprint in it. The mind itself is just a reservoir. It's not anything other than a container, or at least one of its primary functions is a container. And we get to choose what we put into it. And if we're yogis, that's why we do svadhyaya. The more svadhyaya we do, the more we're putting this wisdom into our minds. It's not something inherent in the mind. So we import it because everything in our mind is imported. We have no choice. We have no direct access to the world except through the lens of the mind. That lens we make the lens whatever lens we want it to be. Consumer society tries to encourage us to make a lens full of desires and objects to consume and to attain and so forth. That's what a capitalist economy requires in order to be considered healthy. And yoga is encouraging us in a different sort of way. And it's encouraging us to develop a wisdom lens. But how does that wisdom get in there? Doing what we're doing right now, my friends, studying, meditating, contemplating on the teachings and other practices as well. But svadhyaya is it's the second word in Patanjali, the second chapter. What's the second word in the entire chapter? Kriya yoga. What do you do? Kriya, what do you do? First chapter, samadhi. Okay, all these 6 stages of samadhi. Nibbija. All of that. Fine. Okay, impressive. Right. But what do we do? All right. Second chapter, kriya. What do you do? Second word, svadhyaya. You have to study. You have to transform the mind. Especially we who've grown up in the consumer West, my friends. So, though one may think a lot, it's difficult to grasp when it's taught by an inferior man. Yet you cannot gain access to it unless someone else teaches it. And that teacher could be the text itself. Patanjali is the teacher. Upanishads are the teacher. It's smaller than the size of an atom. It's infinitesimally small. A thing beyond the realm of reason. Reason can't grasp it. It's got to be taught. It's got to come from the outside. One can't grasp this notion by argumentation. You can have all your Vedanta debates you want. Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, Shuddhadvaita. Century after century after century, these debates go on. They never get resolved. Schools remain the schools that they were 1,000 years ago. They haven't changed. They just hand down the lineages. Then the same arguments get handed down generation after generation. You can't grasp it by argumentation. Yet it's easy to grasp when taught by another, if that person's a practitioner, my friends. Otherwise, it's words. Otherwise, it's intellectually interesting, but it doesn't inspire you to practice. To inspire someone to practice, if you want to be a teacher, you have to be deep practitioner yourself. Then you can plant a seed in the heart that will inspire others to seek it. If it's just purely like, philosophy class, okay, now we're going to read the Gita. Now we read the Upanishads. Now we read that is intellectually interesting, but it's not going to plant that seed, that urgent seed to really try to seek the truth. So therefore, it's easy to grasp when taught by another. You're truly steadfast, dear boy. You didn't waver. I try to tempt you away with all these boons. You remain steadfast. You have grasped it. Would that we Nachiketas, have Nachiketas, one like you to question us. Any teacher is just grateful for one really dedicated student, because then the teacher knows the lineage will survive. Just one. You might have a bunch of students, they're interested, sincere, but what you want is one completely and utterly committed. My teacher we used to say he never had one sincere student. He used to say that. I don't have one sincere student. On his level, he was 7 years old. He just left Bengal and walked to Vrindavan and sat on the roof, and that was it. Never went back. Became a Baba and served his guru for decades. And his disciples didn't come close to that. That's the old way. Right. Nachiketas, what you call a treasure, all this disc of gold, elephants, horses, I know to be transient. By fleeting things, you cannot attain the perennial. You can't attain the eternal through these fleeting things. My friends, he's talking to us. It might not be elephants and horses, but whatever it is you're attached to. What is it? Fashion, or clothes, or cars, whatever. We just have to plug in our modern culture. It's transient. But fleeting things, one cannot gain the perennial, the eternal. Therefore, I built the fire altar of Nachiketas, and by things eternal I have again. I don't know. This doesn't make sense to me, this line, but I don't want to get sidetracked. It's not important. So now he's talking about Vedic ritualism. satisfying desires is the foundation of the world, because you do Vedic rituals. Remember, in the ancient Vedic mindset, if you didn't do your Vedic sacrifices, basically that's what kept the cosmos going. The Vedic sacrifice. Brahmins had to get up and do their sacrifice every morning, or the cosmos wouldn't. So therefore, satisfying the foundation desires is the foundation of the world, keeps the world going. Uninterrupted rites you do every day, the Brahmin caste. Not anymore. Well, there's a few still doing it. Very few. Real Vedic rites. In the 1980s, there was only one community left in India, in Kerala, called the Nambudiri Brahmins, that were still doing the ancient rites handed down in the lineages. We're not talking about some government of India sponsored, showy kind of Vedic, not real, authentic, handed down in family lineage. That was 1980. I don't know what happened to them. Hopefully there's still a few. But uninterrupted. So they were genuinely doing, not in some reconstructed way. They weren't reconstructing it. They weren't putting on a show for tourism. They were actually continuing the Vedic rites from 2000 BCE, handed down in their family lineage. Nambudiri Brahmins, go online. Nambudiri Brahmins of Kerala. Who knows? Probably all the kids are engineers in Silicon Valley now. All those whiz kids a lot of them are Brahmins. All of those engineers and computer, all of that Brahmins. Not all of them, but preponderantly. They just transferred that intense application of the intellect in the memorizing of hymns, and they rechanneled it now to software. I'm obviously exaggerating and essentializing and universalizing, but there's some truth to that. I'm overextending it, but there's some truth to it. Satisfying desires is the foundation of the world. Uninterrupted rites bring ultimate security, right? You go to the celestial realm. This is all Vedic ritualism. Great and widespread praise is the foundation. Praise means the Vedic hymns. These you have seen, wise Chiketas, and having seen, rejected. You've rejected these rites to satisfy the desires. What's the ultimate security? It's not really ultimate. The only ultimate security is mokṣa, but figuratively, you go to the celestial realm, it feels ultimate because you stay there for so long. You think, oh, it's as good as being immortal. And then you chant these praise, the Rig Vedic hymns. You've rejected them. So now he starts with the Jnana teachings. The primeval one, the Ātman, who is hard to perceive, wrapped in mystery, hidden in the cave of the heart, residing within the impenetrable depth. Regard him as a god. You seek him, not these celestial gods. Regard your Ātman as a god. He's using this language of the time, of the culture. Regard him. Seek him. Don't seek these celestial. They can only give you petty temporary boons. Regarding him as God, an insight gained, right, viveka, gained by inner contemplation, not by rites, not by all this external chanting of mantras, Vedic mantras. So Om is a different thing. The Om mantras are completely different. We're talking about Vedic mantras, which are we recited one at the beginning. May we foster, may we be healthy, those kinds of mantras. They're the Vedic ones. Gained by inner contemplation, both soy and doro, sukha dukkha, the wise abandon, big theme in the Gita. Right? If you give up raga dvesha, then you give up sukha dukkha. Right? What are the kleshas? Avidya, asmita, raga dvesha, and raga gives you think it's going to give you sukha, joy, and you think dvesha is going to give you sorrow, dukkha. So you have to give up both. Be detached. Just be detached. These are fleeting states of mind. The consciousness is beyond all that. When a mortal has heard it, understood it, when he has drawn it out, this Ātma teaching, grasped the subtle point of doctrine, he rejoices, for he's found something in which he could rejoice. It finally found something which is eternal, which is blissful, which is not temporary, which is the real self. Now we can actually rejoice if we attain that. To him, I consider my house to be open, Nachiketas. I can't keep him. That person attains immortality. My house is open. He passes through. I can't keep him. Death has no more control over him. So it's 8, and we will continue the teachings next week. We have a kirtan tonight, my friends. We have the amazing Cecilia, who's joining us from Buenos Aires, right? Cici, are you there? Cecilia. Tim gets the first question. Cecilia. Cici, you gotta take your mute off if you're there. Well, said she was gonna join us. All right. Next week we'll have Lakshmi then. I wanted to sort of, have a couple of different kirtan voices for you. Cici, let me just email her. And then Tim, do you still have a question? No. Okay, you have 3 wishes like Nachiketas. We didn't give you a wish last time. We'll give you 3 this time. You don't want it. Okay. Well, anyway, anytime you want a question, then you get first pick at it. And let me just email Cecilia. And then I'll take questions from anybody else. Did you like the Upanishad?
Loved it.
Yeah, isn't it cool? These stories are so cool. And by unpacking the stories, we're getting a sense of an ancient Vedic culture. And where is she? I'm just going to email her, Cecilia. Loser. I'm such a loser. Cecilia. Give me a second. My computer is slow. Okay. All right. Just saying, where are you? We're waiting for you. And we'll take questions. I'll keep an eye on that in case she got the wrong link or something. Let me keep an eye on that. In case I emailed her an hour before the workshop. It's not that she was totally, she really wanted to do it. So something's happened. It's not that she forgot. We've been in touch for the last few days, and we most recently, she thought we were 2 hours behind, so she was logging on at 4:00, and I said, no, it's 2 hours ahead. You can join the workshop or just join us at 8. So it was all clear. So something's gone wrong. Okay, Shanti, do you want to put your camera on, Shanti?
Yes. Thank you, Edwin. Namaskar. I am still confused. I don't get a clear understanding about monists and monotheists that you referred to last time. If I understood right, the monists they believed only the Brahman was real and everything was a dream, and monotheists like Ramanuja believed that all these individual Ātmans finally emerged into the Brahman or the Ātman. No,
you got half of that right. These are terms coming out of the Western philosophical tradition. Okay, so right there we start off with the problem because they don't really fit very well. But the Indian monists, they don't call themselves monists, they call themselves Advaita, non-dualists, first of all. So if something is non-dual, it's mono, so fair enough, that's a pretty good fit. But monotheism, I'm using the term that the ultimate truth is a supreme person that's distinct from the souls and distinct from the world. And the souls are distinct from each other eternally. So the Ramanuja is a monotheist. For him, Brahman is ultimately Narayana, Ishvara is Ishvara, for him that's Narayan. And the world is real and distinct from Narayana, although it's supported by Narayan. Narayan supports everything. Just like we have the soul in our body that supports the body. So Narayan is like the soul of the universe that supports the whole universe. But there's a world is real and the souls are real, and one soul is different from another soul. They never merge. No, that's the monists that say that. In the monotheism, one soul is distinct. You're eternally a soul. You may not be Shanti in the next life, but you'll be, your Ātman will still be eternal. If you became moksha, you go to Vaikuntha, because in monotheism, you go to a divine realm. In Brahman, a Sagun Brahman, a realm in Brahman made of pure consciousness, and you receive a divine form, a spiritual form made of pure consciousness, and you engage in eternal loving relationship with God, with an infinite number of other Atmans. That's monotheism, right? So that would be Krishnamacharya's tradition and Guruji Iyengar's tradition. And you mentioned Ramanuja. He is the primary theologian, 12th century theologian of that tradition. Just like in Christianity, the primary theologian in Christianity is Saint Augustine and Thomas Aquinas. They're universally recognized as the two great theologians, and others as well. But they're the two sort of, theologians par excellence of the Christian tradition. So in that tradition, it's Ramanuja, 12th century. Now, monism would be Shankara. There's different types of monisms. But the one I'm usually the Vedanta monism is Shankara, where the world is false, it's an illusion, and the souls are not individual, they really are just Brahman. And when the covering of Maya is lifted, then there's no more individual souls, it's just all-pervading Brahman, impersonal, no personality, no distinctions within Brahman, no distinctions between Brahman and the world, no distinctions between one soul and another soul. Everything is just an infinite, all-pervading, sat, eternal, chit, fully conscious, ananda, blissful entity. So if we do a Vedanta Sutra course, that will be one of the things. The Upanishads are not clear on this. The Upanishads are not systematic like Vedanta becomes. The Upanishads say a monotheistic in some places. We'll see when we read the Shvetashvatara. And then monistic in other places. We read the Chandogya, the rivers merging into the sea. That would be a monistic kind of metaphor.
But I'm still confused because Shankara was also the author of Saundarya Lahari, and he was in the Badrinath. So he did believe in different individual gods. No?
Shankara divides reality into two levels, conventional and ultimate. Conventional reality is a bhakta. He composed the Gita, the Bhaja Govinda. He went to the mandir in Badrikashrama. He does the pujas, all of that in conventional reality. Because for him, these things are purifying. They purify. They're useful. You do bhakti. But when you reach the ultimate paramartika, all that dissolves. All that proves to be unreal. Bhakti, Ishvara, creation, all is false. Jagat Mityam, Brahman Satyam. Only Brahman is true. So that's the ultimate. But he will agree, we can't just jump there. We can't just jump into this higher reality. We're in the conventional reality, and while we're here, we think we're individuals. We think there's a real creation. So we think there's a real creator called Ishvara. And so while we're in this Maya, we have to, in order to see through the Maya, we have to purify our mind. So we do our pujas, we write our Bhaja Govindas, we chant our hymns. But once we get there, all evaporates and only Brahman remains true. That's monism.
So where would we place Vivekananda? He was a Vedantin.
Advaita, same thing, same as Shankara.
Because he was with
ultimately
Makali.
in Advaita, he may have been a bhakta, he may have done all these other things. I'm talking about ultimate truth. Ultimate. And that ultimately Vivekananda is what we call neo-Advaita. He's a sort of he's a kind of a, he's in the colonial period, he's been westernized, he's exposed to Western education, so it's not the classical Advaita, but ultimately he's an Advaita. Even though Ramakrishna was a different kind of Advaita. Ramakrishna was a Shakta. The Shakta believes the world to be real. It's monistic, but the world is real. Shankara Advaita, no, the world is false. It's an illusion. It's a mirage. So there's different kinds of monism, and this is not the time to discuss them.
Okay.
But yeah, if we ever do another workshop on if we ever do a workshop on Vedanta, we'll discuss this. All right.
So one quick follow-up.
Yeah.
So Ramana Maharishi was
Advaita.
He was Advaita?
Yes, Advaita.
Advaita, okay.
Advaita, non-dualist, monist. If you want monotheism, you have to go to Vrindavan, the Krishna traditions, you have to go Ayodhya, the Ram tradition, you have to go down south, the big Narayana centers of learning. You have to go, so that's the monotheistic traditions. My own tradition is monotheistic. The Vrindavan Krishna tradition. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Nice. Pasha.
Hey, Edwin, thanks for today.
You know what it means in Sanskrit, Pasha?
A knot, right? Or
a snare, yes.
Yes, it's actually Turkish though, so
I was going to say, I thought maybe it was, I thought it was Persian, but yeah, Turkish, okay.
Yeah, so thanks for today's session.
Hanifa is a isn't it a Persian name or a Turkish name?
It's actually Arabic. It means,
Arabic.
A monotheist, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I wanted to ask, how essential is belief or faith in the context of jnana or svadhyaya? Because
you just froze. I didn't get the question.
Oh, sorry. How essential is faith or belief in svadhyaya or jnana in this particular context? When I say belief, I mean belief that there is an Ātman, that things will happen after death.
Yeah, 100%. It's all belief. Until you've experienced it, it's belief. What else is it? You can study all you want. You can fortify that belief, which is why we do svadhyaya. And then you apply logic, you apply critical reasoning, you apply all the resources you possibly can. But it remains a belief. Maybe a rational belief, maybe a very deeply reasoned belief, but it's a belief until you've experienced it. And if it's a belief until you've experienced it, there should always be a little bit of doubt. Because if you don't allow any doubt, you become a fanatic, you become dogmatic. So, and with that doubt, what do you do with that doubt? Because doubt can be constructive or destructive. Doubt is destructive when it takes you off the path, and then you go back into a agnostic. Oh, I don't know anything. Nobody knows anything. What's the point? There's all these points of view. I'm not going to commit to any of them. They're all relative. And then what? How's that going to help you at the Great Transit? So therefore, that's an option. You can just be agnostic and give up the whole quest, and then just live your life in some other sort of way. But then good luck at the moment of death. Good luck at the moment of death. Rather, that doubt, which should be there until one has actually experienced these truths, that can be used constructively. So we're constantly analyzing it, we're constantly revisiting it, we're constantly knocking down our whole belief structure, knock it all down, build it back up again. Now, why is it I believe this? Why did I make this commitment? Why don't I believe that? And that is healthy kind of, and svadhyaya does that, because when you do svadhyaya, when you read a Sanskrit text, it's always engaging the opposing point of view. In the commentaries, the Vedanta Sutra and all of these texts, and the Gita, the commentator doesn't just tell you what to believe. He says, well, the Buddhists say this, the Jains say this point of view says this, and how do we respond? Here's how we respond. So the mind is always very actively, it engages in critical analysis. That's what svadhyaya does. Traditional svadhyaya is not just the sutras, but the commentaries that are written around the sutras. So it is faith, and everything's faith. You don't even know there's a world out there. You have faith in your senses. You have faith that the sense impressions that are coming in through your senses, the eyes and ears, You have faith that it's really out there. Everything is faith. So then the question is, what do you choose? Where are you going to put your money? What are you going to have faith in? And therefore you do svadhyaya and you do your practices, and you have your experiences in practice as well, and all of that, and you have a thought, you have traditions that have been handed down for centuries and centuries and centuries, and you have some faith that God, if something's been handed down by these amazing yogis and amazing practitioners and it's survived that long, that you might have faith, well, it must have something going for it. All you get to do is decide in this life. You decide what you put your faith in. Okay. If you're a materialist, you put your faith that's faith. You think, I am a body. There is nothing else. That's what's a faith position. You can't prove that scientifically. I am a body, and there is no soul, and therefore let me enjoy life through my body, and that's the way I will find my happiness. Because when I die, it will be over. That's faith. So we cannot escape committing to a position of faith in something. All we get to choose is what are we going to put our faith in.
I suppose my question is coming from a position of the fact that I come from a Balinese Hindu background, and I've moved here to Australia only a few years ago, and here I meet people who do yoga and all these things, but they say, oh, it's just to make my body healthy, and I found it a bit, I'm not sure how to take that in, where yoga seemed to be a Hindu thing, but here it's like a more exercise, healthy body sort of stuff. So I thought, how do I reconcile that, I suppose? Well,
it's obvious that a consumer culture is going to consumerize everything. If it sees there's money to be made, then the consumer mindset is going to jump on that and it's going to commodify that. So we don't have to let that be. We don't need to criticize that. We don't need to, be a part of that. It's obvious. It's even the most superficial yoga practitioner, it knows. Most of them know there's more to yoga than just the poses, right? By now, people know that. Unless you're doing something like naked yoga or hot yoga, unless you're really, really sort of way out there on the consumer spectrum. So you just leave that alone. That's just the way. That's what Western culture does. To anything that attracts attention becomes a possible marketable product, and then the capitalistic mindset is going to exploit that. So just let that be, and you seek the truth. Let me reframe that in the context of your question. Decide what you are going to put your faith in. Are you going to put your faith in the way yoga is being pitched in the high street? With all the paraphernalia and the yoga, and the shorts and Lululemon and all of that. Are you going to put your money on that, or are you going to put your money on Patanjali and Sri Krishna and the Gita? That's a decision for you to make. And hopefully the answer is obvious. And how does a Turkish person end up in Bali and move to, what were your parents, tradespeople or?
I'm actually Indonesian.
Oh, you're Indonesian, but I thought you said your name was Turkish.
Yes, because my mom said she wanted me to have a name that's sort of, we have a saying in Indonesia, a name is a prayer for a child. So she named me Pasha in the hopes that I would become like a lord, someone brave, a leader.
Okay, so you're from Bali then?
Yeah.
Oh, how wonderful! I hope to visit in this lifetime, but thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't put you on the spot.
No worries. Thank you.
Jai Sri Krishna. Sylvia wants to resolve all of the Vedanta problems in 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's different. I just wanted to know, where could I find that prayer, that last Sanskrit prayer that you said that you gave us? You said it was a sattvic prayer. It's the last one you did. And is that written down?
When we started,
that one.
We began with that one.
Right. The one you just said.
Yeah, we did that at the beginning of the workshop.
Right. Yeah.
That's the Taittiriya, and it is the Taittiriya right before the koshas. So the koshas of the second chapter, and it is So you can get this from online, and it is called the Brahmavali. Brahmavali.
What page are you on?
Well, I'm on the one with the Sanskrit. Oh, okay. You want Olivel. So
Yeah.
Olivel, it is two. Right, Taittiriya 2.2. Okay, page. You want the page? Give me a second. It's on page 184.
Okay, that's the one you.
No, it's not.
No.
Wait, where are we? Brahmavali 211. I beg your pardon. It's 211. Where's 211? 2-1.
No.
It is in the chat now.
It's in the chat?
Okay. So there. It's not in this one. He doesn't have it here. He doesn't have it. How strange. He doesn't have it in this one.
Yeah, that's why I ask you.
It's
yeah.
It's missing.
It's in the chat.
Brahmavali.
What's it called? The what?
Brahmavali. So Brahma, not with an N.
Okay.
Vali, Valli. And it's supposed to be the Taittiriya. I have it in this one, the big one with the Sanskrit.
Oh.
Do you want me to photograph it and send it to you?
I would love it.
Well, send me an email then.
Okay, I will.
All right. Namaskar.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Maureen?
Hello.
Hi, Maureen.
I'm not really sure what my question is, but it's around, you've talked a lot about the Vedic rituals. And I was just wondering, like I guess this is more a historical question. Was there, when the Upanishads were written, was it kind of to move people away from that ritualistic kind of lifestyle, start to kind of like bring people along the spiritual path, if you will?
Yeah, I think so. And well, or at least to move people away from the ritualistic mindset of doing rituals for desire. Because the Gita, which is written around this same time as these middle Upanishads, is going to say, okay, if your dharma is you're a Brahmin and you do these rituals, that's fine. The Gita doesn't speak against the ritual. It accepts that the Vedic ritual is auspicious and part of perpetuating cosmic harmony. Gita accepts that. What it rejects is to do it with a desire for fruits. So then you have the whole teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, or not the whole, but I mean the first one of the main in the opening teachings of the Gita is do your dharma, but don't do it for the fruits. Don't do it to fulfill desire. So if you're going to do Vedic ritualism, do it, but don't do it because you want this, that, and the other, because you want a child, because you want, just do, if you're a Brahmana and it's your family dharma to do ritual, just do the ritual for the sake of doing the ritual.
So do you think that has kind of been brought forward in all the schools that still kind of...
All of it, because all the schools accept that desire is what binds us to samsara, all the moksha schools, all of them. So therefore Vedanta and yoga, that desire becomes the third klesha, right? The kleshas, avidya, smita, raga, dvesha, Vedantas, all of them, and Buddhism too. And in fact, the Buddha never actually rejected the Vedas. He just said, if you're a Brahmana, be a real Brahmana then. So, but yes, overall, the Upanishads are moving people away from the ritualistic mentality, which is to satisfy desires at its core. And the Upanishads are saying that those very desires are what bind you to samsara. And if you and as long as you're bound to samsara, Samsara, you have to suffer, you have to get old, you have to be embodied, you have to die, you have to keep recycling. So if you really want happiness, you're not going to get them from some temporary fruit of the ritual. Even if it gets you to a higher realm, you come back down. So the Upanishads are saying, no, seek the self. That's where that's the only place that's going to be ultimately free of suffering. So yes, it's moving people away, not necessarily from the actual performance of the ritual, but they can't do that because the ritual are in the sacred text and the eternal text. You have to honor that. It's moving people away from the desire mentality, the psychology of desire, which many Brahmins were performing the ritual through that because of desire. It's the desire that has to be removed. Big teaching of the Gita, don't give up the Dharma, give up the desire for the fruits.
I see.
Many yogis were going to the forest, they were giving everything up. The Gita says, okay, you can do that, it's 2 paths, you can give it all up in action, but I'm going to teach you that. The Gita is the first one to really do this in the Indian textual tradition. The moksha traditions were all renounced the world. You take sannyas, you go, Buddhism was like that, early Buddhism, Jainism, yoga, chitta vritti nirodha, everything, give it all up, close it all down. Gita says, okay, you can do that, and it doesn't reject that because there's another way, action in the world, and that action in the world is do your dharma. But what you give up is the desire, not the dharma.
And the outcome, right? Yeah.
Give up the outcome, meaning the attachment to the outcome. That's desire. You do it because you want an outcome. That's what a desire is. So, so dharma might involve, if your dharma is to do Vedic ritualism, you do it. Krishna says, he says, I gave the ritual at the beginning of creation. I gave it. I gave the ritual so that the humans could flourish. He doesn't reject it, but what he rejects is performing. So it's a move away. It is in effect a move away from ritualism, because that Vedic ritualism basically fades by around, as we get into the second millennia. It pretty much increasingly fades away. Like I told you, there's only one community left today. And it sort of gets, it morphs into bhakti and temple worship, and it becomes kind of basically temple worship, which is really what Hinduism is today. So that old Vedic, and temple worship can also be, ritualistic. You go to God and you ask for stuff. You go to God and ask for desires. Most Hindus, like any other religious person going to a church or a place of worship, they go and they ask God for stuff. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Yeah. So yoga's saying that's what's got to be given up, the gimme, 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 the desire underpinning action.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sissy is here.
Sissy. Where are you? Hey, Cece, what happened? Did you, were you on mute? We can't hear you.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Svagatam.
Sorry.
I did tell you 8:30, didn't I?
8:15, but I was here.
Oh, okay, so yeah, because we had questions. Thank you so much. Welcome. And you're in Buenos Aires?
Yes, I'm on the delta of the Paraná, on an island right now.
Okay.
In Buenos Aires.
All right.
Yes.
Make us all jealous. Okay, thank you. Anyway, welcome. Welcome, and please, thank you so much for joining us. And over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Okay.
Cece, thank you so much. Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.
May Lord Krishna steal everyone's heart, because he's a thief. Krishna's a thief. He steals butter, but he steals hearts. He's a heart stealer, and may he steal your heart. And you know what? I think we should do a workshop just on Krishna. Vedanta Sutra gets a bit boring. All this jnana. How about we do a lovely, delightful series of sessions on Krishna, baby Krishna. And we'll have Cece chant for us and bring us to a beautiful place of devotion. Thank you so much, Cece. Can you join us 2 weeks from now? Same time, same place.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you put that in your calendar?
Yes,
Would you be willing? Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. Everyone is writing in these wonderful comments in the chat.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, I'm so happy it's working out for you with the kirtan and everything. Okay, friends. So we see you next week, same time, same place, and we continue. We'll finish up the Kaṭha, then the Mandukya, and then we'll do the Shveta, the very theistic, monotheistic Upanishad. And if we need an extra session, we will, and that will be it. Okay, so have a great evening, and Jai Shri Krishna, and thank you for your good company.
Thank you.
Good
Namaskar.
night. Good night, everybody. Namaskar.
Thank you, Edwin.
Jai Jai Ho Jai.
Thank you, Edwin.
Jai Shri Krishna. Don't say thank you. Say Jai Shri Radhe.
Jai
And
Shri
you get more
Ram.
value. Get more value for money with the name of Radharani. Better deal. Good night.